podcasts started to become more known after the COVID thing. And so I would want to add that aside the commercial side, I think so many people that are doing podcasts today either say podcast as content creation, another trend, another era, or the era for podcasts.
Like the next shiny object.
Yeah, the next thing. No, there was this time when it was affiliate marketing.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
digital
whether
marketing.
those that were called for it, that know about
that's
that
Called
true.
themselves for it.
everybody wanted
That's
it.
true.
I'm an affiliate marketer. If you ask them, they don't even know what they're doing.
There'll always be an audience for whatsoever. I don't know. Just to say the topic. There'll always be an audience for it.
yeah.
People will always have things to say.
True.
But the question is, how is it going to benefit the audience?
Beautiful.
Wow. But then, do you think is everybody that is really focused on the audience?
Welcome to Tebeba Podcast.
Welcome everyone to an exciting episode of Tebeba Podcast. You know how we do it here. On this platform, we explore big ideas, ask meaningful questions, and spark conversations that provide solutions to societal issues. Well, at least we start to give you ideas of solutions. Today, I'm your host, Sunshine, and I'm not doing this alone. I have with me the intelligence, the delectable, the insightful, M to the E to the R to the C to the Y.
Yeah.
Mercy!
Hi everyone.
Hi.
It's good to have me here.
It's great for you to be here as well. Thank you for doing this.
Sunshine.
Thank you for doing this with me today. I'm not alone, or we are not alone. We
are
have
not alone.
a melanin popping queen. We have an intelligent lady.
Yeah.
We have an energetic sis. We just call her Ara. Welcome.
Thank you, Sunshine. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
part of this. Hello, Mercy.
Yeah, I.
We're glad to have you here as well. Let's talk about something that some of us, in fact, many of you watching, actually have a strong opinion about. And let's see whether we need to break the table, shatter it, rearrange anyone, we'll do what is necessary.
Okay.
These days, especially since COVID periods and till now,
Okay.
almost everybody has a podcast.
Let me
See,
sit
in
down
fact, we are here. What are we doing? Podcast.
You also have a podcast?
Almost every notable name or whatever has one podcast or the other. But how many people really have something to say?
No, before we even go into how many people have something to say, podcasts have been existing,
Yes,
right?
Yes, so that's true.
We already have podcasts.
That's true.
But I think after the COVID era,
Yeah.
the podcast shoot out. Like people start seeing it as, and that is where I want to talk about,
Okay.
as investment, as business,
Investments,
as
podcasts. Okay.
Yes, I'm telling you.
All
before we get into what do they even have anything to say? Podcast to me is an investment, because now if you have a podcast studio, do you know how much money you will generate?
Podcast studio. How many people actually have podcast studios? All of those are shooting in their houses or in their offices.
People shooting in their houses. Before they start shooting in their houses, there are, before we have musical studios that people have in their house, there is already there were musical studios. There were for commercial before. So that was how podcast studio actually started too.
Interesting.
We have people who have a musical studio, probably they convert a part, or some people just go into it. They do not even know much about podcasting. They just create because they see that people want to pass something.
Interesting.
Pass something. I'm not saying now it cannot be a
Sensible
redundant
or
message,
not.
can be, but the first thing that I would just say is that people see it as a business. So first thing, they turned everything into podcasting as a business. They want to offer to people who actually wants to. Now the question is, people that are coming, do they not have?
You mean the guests on the
guest
podcast?
No, I don't mean the guest. I mean the customer now, the client who wants to come and use
Okay.
the.
Yes.
Do you think all the studios that we are seeing they are not the owners? Majority of them, they are not the owners. They rent. Some pay for it. After the while, after they leave, they will put their branding whatsoever there. After they leave, another person is coming to use
it. Wow.
They actually create that for people when they see that there is an advent of people coming out after the corona, even though it might not be podcasting in a way, it might be probably to just they call it single podcast, to just like solo podcast, to just hear their thoughts, or probably I think a morning prayer, and all of they come, they pay, just like Tebeba has a studio that we use for podcast, and this is ours. But then we accept people from outside
that want to
pay
to
use it for a particular hour. So it is also commercialized. So before hadn't been we did not start our own, we would have been going
to use another studio.
So when people prefer that, now people now start, I can hear my thought.
I like this angle.
I can hear my thought.
A provider, a suppliers.
Because a lot of people probably either they have something to say or they don't have something to say. When it started, nobody can just pick a random phone and do all of that. They will prefer to text, to type.
Yes, or do videos, or just normal, maybe Facebook lives
or you will not see them using a very cozy environment, lightning, and all of that. But when people see that, if I have a podcast studio, people will surely come, which is true.
That's interesting.
So when you have, then you can now see, and with people who have something to say, I mean, they always have something to say, but sensible or not, they are now. So if you are going to a studio, you want to collect your money, you ask them, please,
do you have something to say?
What you want to say? Will it be sensible or will it not?
Wow.
So that's coming from that.
I love it. Yeah, that's fun.
Okay. So, like you said, that podcast started to become more known after the COVID thing. So I would want to add that aside the commercial side, I think so many people that are doing podcasts today either say podcast as content creation, another trend, another era, or the era for podcasts.
Like the next shiny object.
Yeah, the next thing. No, there was this time when it was affiliate marketing.
Yeah.
And whether those that were called for it, that know about
that called themselves for it.
Everybody wanted
That's true.
I'm an affiliate marketer. If you ask them, they don't even know what they're doing.
That's true.
Amazon
it's same thing as podcasting also. There are people, so now when we want to talk about the abuse of podcasts, or those that don't have anything reasonable to say, but they're just doing podcasts, those that either see it as just part of content creation, or those that see it as the next trending thing that they want to jump on.
So now you came from the supplier side, talking about like people that have the infrastructure for podcasts.
Yeah.
You know, you're coming from the side of the creators of the podcast themselves. Now, imagine the two. You know that because there are people with the studios of the spaces, there are people that want to host a podcast. Now, let me ask, why do we think people pay attention to podcasts? Because actually, if you look at it, why can't you just take maybe a Facebook live video and watch? Why can't you take a YouTube video and watch? Because you know there are even so many sites, Spotify, AudioMac, the rest of them that they use. It's almost like it's because of convenience too. What do you think? Because it's like you can listen to a podcast anytime, anywhere, doing anything.
Well,
you can.
It's part of it. Convenience is part of it. But I think another thing is hearing diverse thoughts on a particular issue, on a particular topic. You are hearing, and sometimes it can resonate with you, and sometimes it might not. You be like, what is this one saying? You can, we are like that.
Yeah.
When you hear something, you be like, there was a time that they brought a lady to a show, and that podcast topic became a trend for podcasts, for other
podcasters. Wow.
Because everybody wasn't like, what's this girl talking about? What she's saying? Some people support her. It's a reality. Some people will be like, hey, yes. Some people be like, no, you shouldn't come out and be saying this publicly.
Wow, interesting.
But then people who wants to learn will still learn.
True.
So people who doesn't want to learn,
they will skip it.
They will just skip it.
it.
So I think there is always an audience.
There's
for
anything.
For everything. For anything, there is always an audience. Even though that thing that you think, and that is the reason why I came from the angle of people providing that podcasting. So when they have a podcast studio, when anybody comes in, either they say nonsense or
they say sense.
you will still see people that will support
audience is-
that
Of course,
person.
Of course. There are
You will
people,
still
these
see.
human beings are clicking the like, the comments, they are
Thank
writing
you.
comments, they are doing share. You need to see people debating in comment sections.
I'm telling
You'll
you.
be reading
The comment in Nigeria, comment section is sweetest.
It's the sweet. I'm telling you.
I'm telling you.
I'm telling you, especially when you are not
Don't say
talking
that.
about maybe dating,
sensational
relationships.
topics.
They will always fight themselves inside the comment section.
Very true.
Or politics. They will
Yes, that's why I said sensational
Or
topics.
football.
Sensational
football too.
Controversial issues.
You will always see that. So now let's talk about why does everybody have anything to
Do people have things to say? Yeah,
else to
while they
say?
come on, when they come
Yes,
on podcast.
people always have things to say.
Okay.
Like what we are doing now
Yeah.
is part of what we have to say.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So the question is, what I'm going to say, is it going to be beneficial to the upliftments,
Of those that
improvements,
are watching
in
us.
growth of those that are watching, or is going to bring them down? So I think we just need to like see into the reason why podcasts should be. People should be doing podcasts.
Okay.
People should
Okay.
show. People should talk on podcast.
And people should listen because their
people should
audience is
listen.
also important.
Audience is also important. Like I said, there will always be an audience for whatsoever. But I don't know. Just say the topic. There will always be an audience for
There are
it.
people that will listen.
Talk about DNA testing. For a child.
There was a time
Talking
that
about-
topic was trending actually. Yeah.
Talking about should wedding be financed heavily
Or not, yes.
or not?
But low budget
you
weddings
would
or not.
see. So people will always have things to say.
True.
But the question is, how is it going to benefit the audience?
It's beautiful.
Wow. But then, do you think is everybody that is really focused on the audience? Because you mentioned at the beginning that some people are doing these things to make money. So if they're focused on the money, they just want anything, just use the test and pay. So do you think, is it the creators that should now focus on the audience? Or is it the people providing, for instance, the podcast studio that should be concerned about the audience? You get my question?
Yes. I don't think, like I said earlier, the owner of the studio will not only if they had standard. Like I mean, they have standard.
They have standards.
They have what people can hear in their studio. Only if. But I don't think some studios. I don't know. But if they have, they will ask. So, what is your own preference? What is your own quality? What are your own features? What do you speak on? But some
So
people,
that means they will ask questions.
they will ask questions before they start, so that it won't be like, okay, what they are doing is nonsense. At the end of the day, they don't care if people are wounded. They don't care if people are insulted. They don't care. And at the end of the day, probably the studio is going to share. Like in Tebeba now, we have our integrity.
Yeah, of course,
So
of course.
the same principle that applies to us, the owner of the studio, applies to anyone who is coming to the studio to shoot. So you will not come here and talk about devil and talk about things that
that will not
violate or
benefit, yes, that will not benefit.
goes against the Christian community. You won't do that. So it's kind of a value. So if the studio has a value, and some studio which are secular, they can just say unfiltered, say whatever you want to say.
That's
They
actually
don't-
something.
So they don't care.
Unfiltered.
So they are only
That's
meant
actually
by
something.
2 hours is 300k. Give us our money.
It's just an example.
It's just an example. I'm just saying.
It's like you not run away. It's just an example. Yeah. What do you think?
I think that with the rate of podcasts that we have today, some interviews have become podcasts.
Interviews.
Before podcasts,
Yeah.
we have more of interviews.
Yeah.
Different interviews where people, you ask them
You ask
questions. There are
questions.
some podcasts that are actually purely interviews. So I feel like there's already a mix-up
Okay.
between interviews and podcasts. And some people, they wouldn't know why they want to do a podcast. Some just want to be out there. Some have the money. Some have the influence. Some have the presence, the online presence. And they just want to, they know people will watch, like he said. They just want to do it. So
when you're talking about interviews, that means, are you trying to say things like some podcast places, some podcast shows or settings are actually just gist arenas? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, they may not have a particular topical issue or maybe they have an issue, but they might actually focus more on some particular people's lives.
Yeah.
To talk about.
Yeah, and it can feel intrusive, like
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Because I feel like a podcast should be more of addressing a particular issue, holding conversations around that issue, and preferring solutions or possible solutions to that issue, depending on what it is. But podcasts most time have, a particular topic. But the idea where you say you have a podcast or you're hosting a podcast and then you invite someone, if you're inviting someone, the person should be coming to talk about a particular topic or theme that you want to address in your podcast or on your podcast. But the idea of inviting people and then asking personal questions to feed your audience, I don't think that's a podcast. I think that's more of an interview.
Okay.
And like you talked about a particular post that you shared where a woman was saying that nobody should attend podcast. She was talking down on granting invitations on podcasts because you already became an avenue of
digging into people's lives, making them uncomfortable.
And, you know how the internet works. People don't care about the context of your conversation. They just pick out anything,
especially
and it
bloggers.
goes viral. Especially bloggers. So I think there should be a line between interview and podcasts.
Now, this conversation so far has focused more on like people that are providing the podcast studios, people that are hosting the podcast shows. How about the consumers of the podcast? How about we talk on even, I, for example, if I'm someone who listens to podcasts, maybe I'm at the gym, I'm going to work, I'm at school, I'm trying to not sleep off while working, but I just plug my ears and listen to something. Don't I have a responsibility to make sure that I only listen to things that serve my values? Because, both of you have agreed now that there's an audience for everything. So that means I can find a podcast on any random topic. So are we saying now that, okay, so because there's every and any podcast, we just listen to everything?
No. I believe that everyone who listen, they have their own preference of the type of podcast they listen to. Only if they need more knowledge on a particular area, they can go and watch some. I think there is a guy on YouTube that always put out probably 5, 6, numbers of podcast channel that talks about a particular, like if you go to Dr. Femi or Pastor Emmanuel, Dr. Emmanuel, if you go to his page, Olumide Emmanuel, what you want to see there is not really deep Christian issues, Bible issues, but what you will see most times is deep wealth issues. So you want mindset, growing, wealth, and all of that. You want to get into that so well in a Christian way. Then you go there. So if I look for that, if I need wealth, if I need such kind of podcast, anywhere it features, I know that he will surely talks about that.
Sure.
And you will not see him on any podcast that's or relationship sometimes.
Sometimes.
So you will not see him on any podcast. He knows that this is my home value. So me as well, as I am the audience, I am a consumer of such content. I know who I listen to. So I think every audience know. Maybe people just listen. I don't know. Maybe there are people who just listen to anything, anyhow, anything that they just open to. They just why? I don't think people should.
It's not healthy actually.
Choose a particular niche industry. Choose a kind of topic that you want to listen to, and if it is for personal growth, if it's majorly, most times it's always centered around personal growth. You listen to it, you watch them. I love this guy as well.
What does that talk about?
It talks about growth, branding, and all of that.
Is there any additional?
There's
an additional.
Adedimeji. And there is additional as well. It talks about real estate and growth and all of that. So if I want to go into real estate, if I want to hear podcast about that, I know who to go. So I think people should have different podcasts for their different
areas of life
that they should.
Podcasts are meant to be educative.
Exactly.
Not feeding your curiosity.
Just publicizing the personal life of
people. So like you said, you want to learn about this, you want to gain knowledge, you want to be educated. Go to that's what podcasts do. Not
that's quite That's quite something. So I really believe that everybody who has watched this episode, you have one thing or the other that you have taken. So whether you are somebody that has a space that you are someone that wants to be a creator of podcasts, or you even want to be featured on a podcast yourself, I'm sure that you have one or two insights that you have gained. So let's just get your closing thoughts. Yes, R.
Yes, so I'll just say that not everything you have to say, or not all of your opinions should be heard. Yeah, not everything. The fact that you are getting a particular knowledge, or you just feel like saying something, does not give you the guts or the audacity or the right, should I say, the right to start a podcast. Have a solid reason. Have the interest of those that are listening to you at heart. And then if you want to interview people for the sake of exposure, enlightenment, let's know that you're doing an interview. So like, we were talking about everyone having something to say. Everyone has something to say, but what you're saying doesn't make sense even to you. Don't go on there and say just anything because you have because you have access to facilities. You can just decide, I want to do a podcast. Why? Have a strong why. Thank you.
All right. This is what I would say. Even though you have a strong why, do you know that there are people who actually have a podcast just on sex? For sex. Like, they don't even care whoever listens to it. They are very raw and unfiltered.
And they're available on public platforms.
Very available. Why don't you go the extra mile to warn people ahead of time that this is 18 plus?
See, wait, say at this point,
Let me tell you, 18 plus.
No.
Is that not what?
We
18
know,
plus, that was when
but at least,
the curiosity.
but at least, I mean, that is the general
that's the right thing
PG,
to do.
parental guide of any content. So you want to talk about things like that. I mistakenly jumped on one day, and I was like, on the show, they were like testing toys.
I agree with
I was
you.
like, why don't you warn me before I
agree with you. I also had a situation of a lady who stumbled on a podcast where a porn star or a stripper or something was talking, and like this lady was complaining that this thing actually it triggered her because she had had history
some years
in that area.
Somebody was healing. Who was healing? Then you didn't want. Okay, this as
explicit
content or
even some things that involve violence. Things that involve.
Let the audience know, so that the audience will know that no, I am not to watch, because most time you will not see the topic as something harmful. You will just see until you get it. What are they saying? So please, anyone who is actually creating a content, a podcast out there, if let us know the kind of, the content you are making, the podcast, what it surrounds. We cannot even tell between the topics nowadays if the one is Christian or if it is not Christian. We cannot even tell. We can't even tell. So try as much as possible. In the end, let people know the kind of, if it is rated 18, let them, if it is rated 12, then let everybody know, so that you can feed your audience with the right thought, with the right. Then people who exaggerate on podcasts. Yes, because
they just want
to trigger people's emotion, people's curiosity, so that the work can, the contents can go viral, can explode and go viral and can become. So please, let's minimize this. Let's be honest. You want to share your personal life, you want to share your things, you want to make people to learn from you. Like you said earlier, it's for educative purpose. So you want people to learn, you want people to grow. Personally, communally, whatsoever, ordinarily. So you want them to grow. Please just ensure that you are genuine enough. Don't do scripts. Be genuine enough. Filter what you want to say and get the word to us peacefully. Thank you.
So awesome. And for me, I think I'll just take this from an angle that we've not yet taught. If for everyone, though we have mentioned it, he mentioned making sure that you have a go-to person for a particular area. If you're someone who is looking to become influential as well, if you're also looking to be featured on podcasts and all, I think it's a good time for you to build your personal brand, become known for that particular thing, so that if maybe at the start of your career you're still trying to send out pitches for people to feature you, there's track record, especially online, of some of the things you have done, right? Of course, I know that not every result is measurable online. Maybe sometimes you might do some things offline. Maybe you train people offline or whatever. Find a way to document your work. Many of these people that that he and Ara mentioned that were featured on one podcast or the other for particular topics, they are people that have established their authority in that area. So as you are curating carefully the podcast you're listening to, of course, Tebeba should be on the list. Yeah, you know now, it's number one. So as you're doing that, make sure that you're also intentionally, valuely creating your personal or strengthening your personal brand. It was so great having this conversation with you all, and we believe that you've had a great time as well. Leave a comment. Don't be stingy. You've listened to the end. You've watched to the end. Now, give us a comment. Let us hear your thoughts. Right? And make sure that you follow Tebeba Podcast across social media, and also make sure you share, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Click that notification bell, and we'll see you in another podcast. So we'll come your way again.
Bye.